Hello, hello, wherever you are, lovely Facebook community, members of the Home Education Hub. It is Clare Ford here, founder and CEO of the Switched On Academy and host and facilitator of the Home Education Hub, bringing you another live interview this week with an amazing colleague and coach friend of mine, the lovely Helen Snape, who is a relationship coach. And what we are delving into today to support is something to support us mums. Now, as you know, I am doing a lot of work with kids and teens. And so I also think it's very, very important that I bring experts in who can share their advice and their tips and strategies to support us as parents, because sometimes it can be hard to show up for our kids, right? And sometimes in the school holidays, they can be driving us crazy. And then when we feel like that, we feel guilty. So the mum guilt is real. And I know that I have experienced that myself in the school holidays, especially if you want to just have like a lazy day, or you just want to get on with your work and you're like, oh, I wish they'd go back to school, like they're driving me nuts. And then you think, oh, that's not a very nice thing to say. Right. I was talking to one dad the other day, solo parent dad, and he was like, oh my goodness, geez, these school holidays, they're just killing me. This is something else. Like, how do women do it? How do we juggle everything? So we're going to be talking to Helen today, who's going to be sharing with us 5 of her best tips and strategies that she uses with her high-level clients in her VIP programs. She's going to be sharing those kindly with us today for free. And if you want to reach out to Helen afterwards, there will be a way for you to do that, which we will share with you at the end. So thank you to those of you who are hopping in. It is lovely to see you. Make sure you pop your name below so I can see who you are and it doesn't just say Facebook user. And if you're hopping in on replay, let's have the hashtag replay when you watch this video. And please do remember to comment below, ask any questions, and tag either Helen or myself in your posts so that we can circle back around later and respond to you and acknowledging you for giving the time up to listen to this interview. So without further ado, I am going to bring in the lovely Helen, who will tell us a little bit about herself, and then we will get going into some of the strategies right away, because this is a lunch and learn, and I know that you have got hungry families to feed. So let's do this. Bringing in the lovely Helen. Here she is. Lovely, lovely.
Hey. Hi, Claire.
Helen's
Hi.
in the house. So Helen, it's great to see you. Before we get into sharing tips and strategies and kind of thinking around all of that, tell us a little bit of your backstory, or obviously as much as you feel comfortable sharing, but, why a relationship coach? Right? Why a relationship coach when it could have been any other coach?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, it's because I was so terrible at relationships. So, at work, I would just say yes to everything because, I wanted to impress and I wanted to get ahead. And I would just try desperately to kind of to fit in with what I thought people wanted of me at work. So I was a real chameleon. And what did that get me? That got me to be overworked and probably underpaid, right? So that was kind of in the workplace. But then in my personal life, I ended up in a very toxic marriage. And I stayed there for a long time. And when I got free of it, I thought I absolutely do not want to get into that kind of a relationship again. I need to figure out what it is about myself that maybe kind of got me into that relationship to begin with, and then made me stay there for so long, because I absolutely don't want that to happen again. And so began my journey of learning how to basically do life differently, and in particular relationships. And I've always been interested in relationships. I studied psychology at university, working in human resources. I worked in clinical psychology for a while. So it's always been my fascination. And I suppose what I'm really passionate about is I believe that we all deserve to live a life we love. And that key to that are healthy relationships. Like we're only really happy when we have emotional connection with others and those healthy relationships. But we can get into patterns such as people pleasing, recovering people pleaser here, by the way, that actually ruin the relationships that we're so desperate for. And so this is why I do the work I do, because I've had to learn so much about doing relationships differently, and I want to share that with people.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Helen. And, you make such good points because, I remember my granny saying to me many years ago, that phrase that no man is an island. And, so it's true, isn't it? That whatever we're doing in our life, whether it's business, whether it's career, whether it's entrepreneurship, whether it's family, whether it's parenting and educating and whatever, at the end of the day, it's with other people. It's with other people. And, even if you're doing something on your own, sometimes I'm quite a lone wolf. I like to go for walks on my own and stuff like that. Even if you're doing something on your own, you're still doing it because you're filling yourself up to be ready to interact again with other people. So really, no man is an island. And so that energy that is reciprocated in the relationships, whether it's online, whether it's business, whether it's family, whether it's a significant other, whatever it is going to impact how you go about your day, how you go about your week, and how you feel about yourself. And so it's really important, isn't it, that we know a bit like who we are, what our values and our boundaries are, what is our no and what is our yes. And so that we attract those people to us, or that we end up designing a life that we want our dream life with the people in it that we actually want to hang out with. Right? Like, I know they say, you can choose your friends, but not your family. Well, you can choose your friends. You can choose how you show up with your family, which can change those family dynamics. So, I really love the way that you've explained all of that, and how that relationship piece really is so central to everything. And does that, obviously that would include, I'm assuming, relationship with self as well, at the center of the center.
Yes. So for me, working with people on their relationships, the starting point is the relationship with yourself. It has to be. And that was kind of part of my healing, was that I didn't really have a relationship with myself because my focus was always on other people. And I thought it was selfish to think about myself. And beginning to create a relationship with myself, it then creates a firm foundation for how you show up in every other relationship. So yeah, I'm really glad you said that.
And that leads us nicely into that thing around mum guilt, right? Like, why do we have that? Why do we have that thing around mum guilt? It's because we're looking outwards. We're always thinking that we're not doing enough for other people. We're not showing up in the right way for other people, namely our children in this case. And we feel torn with work and childcare and priorities. And when we feel that we haven't got that balance right, we haven't chosen the right priority according to whoever's law, like, I don't know who the person is who made up this bloody law.
The mother's law.
Kept us all feeling guilty for eons. But like, whoever it is who made up that law, like whatever it is that we're aspiring to reach, it's just crazy the amount of pressure women especially seem to put on themselves to do everything for everyone all the time. It's okay to do some things for some people some of the time. Of course it is.
Of course.
So help us get a little bit of perspective into that then, because I know that as a mum, when my boys were younger, there's 3 years between them. So, say, for example, a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old boys, right? bouncing off the walls, bouncing off the sofas. Like, our house was so busy and fun and messy and all of that. How do we do that? How do we get some perspective on, okay, it's all right to do some things for some people, and it's also all right to say no and to do some things for myself? Help us into that.
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? It's a lot about the expectations that we put on ourselves, and also the expectations that we take on board from other people, and recognizing when we're doing that, and being okay to let them go. Actually, we compare ourselves to, you know, what we think are like the best mums, or, you know, people that look like they've got it all together, and we don't know really what's going on for them.
No, exactly.
But we just assume that that they've got it all together, and everyone's just trying to live their life, aren't they?
And I think it's about managing others' expectations as well as our own, you know. So I do this a lot with my boys, and even now as teenagers, you know, needs and expectations change. Thank goodness. But, you know, it's all this, you know, can you drop me off to my job? Can you pick me up from the party? Can you? And it's like, well, yes or no. And I have to say, well, it will be within this parameter that I can do that. Or if it's not around that, it'll only be then. Or, you know, because this is what else is going on for me. So, yes, I can, but it might not be on the exact terms that you're requiring. So you're not run ragged, right? Just you're not at someone's beck and call like, well, I'm not at someone's beck and call like this. But it's very easy to be that, you know, the husband, you know, can you pick me up from the station? I've had a few beers at work, after work. Can you pick me up from the pub? I'm doing a late shift, you know. Can you pick me up from the party? You know, my friends just decided to throw a party because lockdown's lifted. And before you know it, you're running around like this. So it's really important to manage other people's expectations. And I do that with my boys by saying, well, if it's not in the diary, don't expect it to get done. If you tell me in advance, I'll put it in the diary and it'll be exactly what you want. If you tell me at the last minute, you just have to go with the best I can do at the time.
To have that structure in place. Fantastic.
That's really important, isn't it? It's really important. Otherwise, we're just like drifting on the breeze of whoever needs us next. And, you know,
constantly available mum.
Constantly available mum, right? And then the friend rings up having a crisis, and your mother rings up needing something or other, and trip to the hospital, and and you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, now I'm here, now I'm there. You know, because I think especially with stay-at-home mums, if they're not entrepreneurs, they almost feel that has to be their job, and so they have to sort of justify the no even more. Like, I can say to my boys, well, no, I can't come and do that then because I've got a client, or because I've got a student, or because I've got an interview, or because I've got whatever. That's what I'm doing, right? But I can appreciate that if I didn't have that, and it was because I was going to yoga, they'd be like, well, why not? And if it's because I've got yoga, somehow that is diminished.
Interesting, isn't it? The different value.
That becomes a thing that gets pushed down the ladder. And so suddenly you never go to yoga anymore. And then you never do swimming, and then you never meet your friend for coffee. You never get your hair done. You never get your nails done. You never get your pedicure. You never have that massage. You never go for that run because you're always prepared to lower your little piece of time to fit in somebody else. That's certainly been my personal experience. I'm not saying everybody does that. I say stand firm. Stand firm, right? And like you said, point number 2, we haven't done point number 1 yet, but point number 2 that you were going to make was about that self-care. And actually it's about saying, well, no, actually my yoga is a priority over picking you up from a party. I'll come 25 minutes later.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and just around self-care. I know it gets said a lot, but self-care isn't selfish. I think we absorb that message somewhere along the way that it is, but it really isn't. Because if you don't take care of yourself, then you won't have the energy and the time for the people in your life that you really care about. Like they will end up getting your, like, the scraps of you
Mm. Yeah,
rather than the best of you.
yeah,
And it doesn't always mean that you have to take an hour out for yoga, or to go and meditate on a hillside or something. It could just be as simple as, when you make yourself a cup of tea, can you just take a couple of minutes while you're doing that to look out at the sky and just to pause and
mm,
breathe.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's just taking that time to pause and breathe is so
Mm.
important, and I think that there is a lot though around, that the first point that you made a little bit earlier, touching on that and that whole
Mm.
expectations. And it's almost like that super mum thing. And it's like, okay, so when you do the school pickup, I was very aware that when you do the school pickup, you've got the sporty mums in the all the lycra, and they're like, right, we're off, we're going to be doing this. And then, and then you've got, the working mums with all the perfect makeup, and like, right, we're going off for our careers. And then you've got people like me who were just in kind of normal clothes and a bit bedraggled, going like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to be doing. Right,
Mm.
and so it can be really that comparing at the school gates,
Oh,
that can really start your day off in the wrong way.
yes, yes. I think it was Roosevelt who said comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And I love that so
Mm,
much.
I will type
Yeah,
that in. Yeah.
because
So,
we can be quite, we can be okay with what we're doing, but yeah, it's when we start looking at other people and go, oh, they've really got it together. They're really banging life out in a way I'm not. That
yeah,
then we feel less than
yeah,
them, and and suddenly, like, the joy we had in just like living our life goes.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And you never know as well what struggles people have.
Mm.
Right? You never know what their innermost motivations are for looking a certain way, turning up a certain way, and being a certain way. You never know, really, if you were to scratch beneath the surface and have a conversation with those people, actually, what their own demons are, what their own fights are, what their own situation is. And so, that comparison, that judgment isn't even based on a truth.
Mm. Mm.
It's just based on an observation, which is triggering something in you about self-worth, about lack of self-worth and not enoughness. And so we can choose, can't we, to see those people in a different way, right? So we could go home and go, okay, so seeing this person looking at that made me feel like this. Seeing this person, overhearing this person talking about that made me feel like this. Whatever it is, we can go home and we can choose to show up in the same way the next day, but to actually have a different reaction, right? To respond differently to those people. So when we see them again, like, talk about, how was your workout? Like, how was the day at work? Like, how, is there anything I can do to help you? Do you want your son to come over instead of going to after school club? Right? We can, rather than sort of putting people on this kind of pedestal, which is of our own making, a whole value ladder of stuff, we can just reach out and have a conversation with people. Get rid of that comparison.
Yeah, yeah. Now, as you were talking there, I was reminded of I think it was something that Kristin Neff was talking about, and it was like almost like kind of about like what is like the whole point of life, and it's like, is it to be perfect, or could it be to be a compassionate mess? And I love that so much.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, what is more realistic?
Yeah.
And and what's so beautiful about that is like in those moments when you're comparing yourself to someone else, it's like, oh, actually, like, can I just like acknowledge for myself, you know, how I'm feeling and having that compassion for myself.
Yeah.
But then it also comes back to the relating to that other person. It's like, actually, you know, we're both just humans trying to live our lives.
Yeah. Just trying to get through the day. Doing
Yeah.
our best, showing up how we can. Absolutely, absolutely. I love that. That's so important. So, moving on from that sort of connecting with people and getting to know them better, not just sort of that value judgment, which is that whole comparing, and then taking that time for self-care. I know one of the things that you talk about a lot is why it's important to talk about it. Now, does this mean like splurging all over Facebook and social media and going, oh my God, my life's a disaster. You know, I hate my partner, I hate my children, I hate my life, I hate my job, I hate my boss. Or actually, is that not what you mean by talking about it?
That's not quite what I mean about no. It's, for me, it's about finding other people that are having similar struggles to you, similar issues, and having real conversations with them about it. Because it's quite easy to think, oh, you know, I'm the only one that's struggling with this, like, because, you know, because I'm looking at everyone else and thinking they've got it all together.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, you know, when you start to talk to other people that are going through the same things you're going through, you realize, you know, A, like, you're not alone, like, and B, you know, you're not the only one with these struggles.
Yeah.
And it just makes you feel more connected to other people. It validates your experience, and then you can start like learning from each other, sharing and learning, and, you know, and talking about stuff that actually is really going to help you in your life, you know, not just talking about the weather.
Yes, having those what I call connected conscious conversations. And I think that this is one of the reasons actually that I so enjoy doing these interviews, because as much as it is for all of you lovely people who are listening right now, of course it is, and as much as it is for you lovely guests who are showing up and sharing your expertise, it is actually also for me to be in the vibration of a conscious, connected, intelligent conversation that is also supporting me to grow and to learn new things, and to feel that I can connect and talk about things with people on this kind of level, which isn't necessarily the kinds of conversations that I might have on a daily basis, you know, with people who are just around me. And so that's actually just as important for me. And I made that realization probably halfway during lockdown. And I'm like, do you know what? These conversations are keeping me going, right? When I'm not able to go out and to meet other, you know, high vibration of people that I like to connect with, having these kinds of conversations on Zoom with people around the world has made me feel like I'm not going mad. You know, that there are other people who get it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So important, isn't it? So important. So I love that. I love that. That's really important. And one of the things that I'm fascinated hearing more about from your kind of psychotherapeutics or psychoanalysis background that you've done with your degree is actually, oh, I've written gult. A minute. Let me just edit that. It's really small in the box here, and I've got the light in my eyes, and so I often do come up with a little typo. There we go. Is what actually is guilt? Like, we've talked about the mum guilt and how we feel that in the holidays, and the managing the time and the boundaries around the no, and, you know, setting clear expectations for yourself and your family, all of that stuff. But like, where does it come from? Like, you know, why do we feel guilty? And talk to us a little bit about like where that is in our body, and that if we don't manage that guilt, like, where does it go? What does it do to us?
Yeah. Oh, everything about guilt. So, yeah. So guilt it is a feeling. It's the feeling we get when we feel that we've done something wrong. And so this is why I kind of had it as my fourth tip, because it's so easy when we feel guilty to not want to think about that, to deal with it. And so we just like go and distract ourselves with something else. Like I'll go and do something with the kids, or I'll go and make supper, or I'll go and watch TV or something. I thought, actually, can we just like stop and say, okay, let's just explore this guilt a bit, and ask ourselves, like, is it warranted? Like, have I actually done something wrong? Because, if you have done something wrong that you feel is wrong, then you can take the action following on from that. You can go and say sorry, you can go and make amends, you can change your ways, right? But quite often we have that feeling of guilt when we haven't done anything wrong. And so I suppose the invitation is to get curious about that. Does it remind you of anything? Does it seem familiar? Because I would feel guilty whenever I said no. And that that's come from a long history of that kind of a pattern. And I think it can really help when we understand where it has come from, because it then can help release some of its power. If it's like, well, I know that I find it hard to say no, and I feel guilty when I say no because, perhaps as a child, I was told off when I said no. Maybe it's not quite that straightforward, but say it's from that, then we can have that compassion for ourselves and just recognize, oh, actually, okay, so I can see where that's come from. I'm now 46 and it's 2021. Things are different now. I don't need to feel guilty. Like, I still might feel guilty because I've got all these years where it's kind of been ingrained in me, but I know that it's not a real guilt. Like, I haven't actually done anything wrong.
Absolutely. And gosh, it's a really big topic, isn't it? And there's also like the whole blame thing, like other people make me feel guilty. Right? Let's talk into that, because I used to say that a lot.
Oh, yes. You make me feel
kind of not take ownership for the feelings of guilt, because I felt that it was almost like, that I was it's not sort of a victim mode, but it was more of the martyr. More of the martyr. And so it was all that I'm doing so much for everyone type energy.
Yeah.
I'm always doing so much for everyone. No one does anything for me, right? Well, have I asked them? No. But in that energy, it's easy to feel guilty for saying no to somebody, or, oh, I'm late, or I'm so sorry, or no, I can't do that. And then you're like, oh, I feel guilty for saying no to that. But I feel like I've let them down, right? But it still is not taking responsibility for the emotion. It's passing the buck and saying that person made me feel guilty. That's the same energy as saying my children make me angry. I lose my temper because my children make me angry. I'm on the edge of my tether, I'm on the end of my tether because I'm run ragged because my children make me do that.
Yeah.
Ooh, so
that is such a big one, Claire. Like, I remember listening to a podcast and by Michelle Chalfant, and one of the things she said was, nobody can make you feel anything you don't already feel.
Exactly.
And I just like sat there going, you what? And I was so annoyed.
Exactly.
I was
I
like,
know.
what do you mean? What do you mean? How dare you say that? And it took me a long time to understand and like be, oh, okay, I get it now. I get it now.
I know. This is the thing. It's about us taking responsibility for our emotions and not passing the buck and not hiding it and wrapping it up around what other people are making us feel, making us be, making us do, but it's a big learning. It's a shock, and it does make you angry. You're like, oh gosh, okay. So you mean in this narcissistic relationship where my husband's making me feel certain things that that's actually me allowing myself to feel those certain things.
Yeah, and in that kind of a relationship, obviously it's like it doesn't excuse their behavior, of course, but yeah, there is like we can take responsibility for our feelings.
We have to take responsibility for our feelings. We cannot go around saying, my children is making me angry. Well, step outside and deal with your anger. They're children. It's their job to push buttons. Wait till they're teenagers. Right? Like, maybe your partner makes you angry as well. Well, step outside, deal with your anger, and then come back and sort that out. Like, we can't pass the buck anymore, So yeah, that guilt thing, that is huge. That is huge. So what happens then if we kind of work through our guilt and go, okay, I'm going to be responsible for my emotions. I'm going to understand where this guilt's come from. I mean, I did a lot of inner child. I still do a lot of inner child healing work for others as well as for myself. And nurture that inner child, find her, nourish her, love her, tell her that she's doing a great job, that she's beautiful, right? Do the inner child healing and transmute that guilt like an alchemist, transmute that. So what happens then when we move up that vibrational scale, because guilt is quite a low vibrational energy, and we move up that vibrational scale and we start hitting emotions like anger or resentment? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So yeah, I kind of would separate out anger from resentment. Yeah, I'll come back to anger, but I think my kind of tip here was around learning to shift the unwarranted guilt is a journey. Like it's not going to happen overnight. It would be great if we could just say, right, I choose not to feel guilty. But it takes time to lose that unwarranted guilty feeling. But what I'd say is, if it does come up and you're like, oh, okay, I'm feeling guilty, but I know I don't need to, and you have the choice about whether to say yes to something that you don't really want to do, or to say no and to feel guilty, I'd say choose the guilt over the resentment and the saying yes to someone. Because then what happens is you say yes to them, and then you end up resenting that other person because you said yes to something that you perhaps didn't want to do. And then it's like a little bit of poison in the relationship that can, it festers resentment and it builds.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing really is that the guilt is more of an internalized feeling for oneself, but the resentment is more of an externalized feeling about someone else, or towards going out towards someone or something else, whereas the guilt, it goes in towards ourselves.
Yeah, I think in this particular example, that's right. Yeah, and the guilt is like the guilt is kind of it's like an echo from the past.
Yeah,
it may feel uncomfortable, but you can live with that discomfort.
Yes,
knowing that it's not really real, like it's just an echo from your past. Whereas if you say yes to something now and then you're not happy about it, that resentment is going to be real.
yeah, Yeah, it
Yeah.
eats away at you. It eats away at you. The guilt you can kind of work through, but the resentment can eat away at you, can't it?
Yeah. And then it was interesting you mentioning anger.
Yeah.
With the ladies that I tend to work with who, you know, are on this journey of recovering from people pleasing, often don't really feel their anger.
No.
And it's learning to find it again. You know,
Yeah.
because anger is
It's a
so
bit scary when you
useful.
do, though. It's scary when you do and it comes out. And it's like, oh, where did that come from? And then you've got to learn how to deal with it and channel it,
Yeah.
especially if it's been repressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anger is a wonderful thing. As you say, that it's then learning how to have healthy anger.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That took me a long time. That took me, I think I've been through all those stages, you know, I've been through all the things that you've talked about on my journey, you know, as a mother and understanding myself, and as a reformed people pleaser, and as somebody who was in narcissistic relationships and had very low self-esteem, and who would try to, through externalizing, through relationships, try to get that self-validation. You know, that just doesn't work. We have to validate ourselves. We have to validate it. Like you say, that relationship piece, the reason you're a relationship coach is it starts with ourselves. Learn to love ourselves, have that compassion, that kindness, that messy compassion, you know, or a compassionate mess. I love that. So that as we grow and learn these things, and it's never too late to start. It's not like we know all the answers. We're on our own journeys and learning things all the time, aren't we? But it's just as we go through these stages and peel away some of the stuff that's been holding us back, some of these new things will then come to the fore, which is why the coaching and mentoring that you do, Helen, is just, you know, so important. So let's just recap what we've covered, and then perhaps you would like to just give us a signpost where people can reach out to you for further support, or if you've got anything that you've got going on right now that people can sign up for or join your group in, whatever. So one of the first things, just to summarize, our 5 top tips to alleviate mum guilt and exhaustion and all the stuff that goes along with that is, first of all, stop comparing. Stop the comparing. We're all on our own journeys, and everything that we're doing right here, right now, I truly believe is absolutely perfect for where we need to be. So, you know, if you don't like something in your life, that's a reflection of actions you've taken, thoughts and beliefs that you've had that have got you to that point, and you just simply change those. You choose to change those and to take different actions, and then you get different results, which might be more of the dream life that you want. So another thing that we talked about was the self-care. You were saying how that gets bandied around a lot, but how important that really, really is. Even if it's as simple as pausing when you're making a cup of tea to just look out at the clouds and take a few grounding breaths. That is self-care. So that pausing is so important. We talked about talking about it with like-minded people. So not just splurging all your personal details out to all and sundry, but like, you know, choosing your friends wisely, choosing your social circles wisely for people who are going to uplift you and elevate you and support you, right? You know, even if that's through coaching circles or all sorts of mentorships, all sorts of things. What would you put in there about talking as a solo parent? I was very mindful of not quite being sure how much to talk about with my sons as they were growing up, like about my own kind of personal situation, like if I was having a bad day, like how much do you sort of show your kids that you're human and that there's a way through and that today will be another day without overburdening them? How much do you just go, no, everything's fine, happy, 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 which is totally unrealistic. And then when they have a crisis, they've got no idea how to deal with it.
Yeah, I think it's a really fine line to walk. And I suppose you have to tailor it for the age of the children. I suppose it's getting the balance of, as you say, like being real with them about, actually, mummy's having a bad day, but then making sure that they don't feel like responsible for kind of for taking care of you, like letting them know, like reassuring them, like, it's okay, like I'm going to sort myself out.
Yeah.
You don't need to take care of me. I think that's the important thing.
Yes.
But like, it's a really like fine line, and some kids kind of maybe do grow up a little bit quicker than other kids, and so it is, it's a judgment. And I think that's probably why this point about being able to talk about it with other parents is so helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And then the fourth thing was getting curious about the guilt, like go back and think, well, why am I even feeling guilty about this, right? What's been triggered, and what are maybe some of those generational patterns from the past, even past lives, right? I mean, so many things here that this can open up. So not one just for a 2-minute conversation, but it's important nevertheless to look at it, just start peeling away that onion and think, okay, what's actually under the guilt? And like you say, I love that, the way you express that, Helen, as an echo from the past. So it's about stepping into that and going, where have I felt like this before? Where have I felt like this before? I love that. Yeah, it's really an important question to ask. And then this was the final point you made, which was about choosing the guilt over the resentment. So when you're in that moment of making a split-second decision to say no and feel guilty, or to say yes to something that you know you're going to resent later on down the line, your advice is to choose the guilt. Choose the no. I love that. That's like really, really important. Amazing, Helen. Thank you so much. So listen, if people want to get in touch with you, where can we find you?
Easiest way to find me is my website. It's helensnape.com. And I'm also all over social media, but start with my website. It's easy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. And have you got any exciting projects or new things that are coming up, even maybe in the autumn, or anything you're releasing?
Yeah. So I am releasing a new group coaching program, Embodied Freedom in Relationships. And it is for those women who perhaps know that they say yes to everything and they really want to change, and maybe they've tried a lot of kind of talking methods, but somehow they still keep falling back into old patterns. And so this is going to be a program about being able to tap into your whole being and your inner knowing, so that you can say no and have healthy relationships. And yeah, if anyone wants to talk to me about that, maybe pop a comment in the thread below or direct message me.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much. And such important work that you're doing. So thank you, Helen, so much for your time today. We're going to bring our conversation to a close now. But as Helen said, if you would like to get in touch with her further, just tag her in the comments under this post. She's going to be opening up spaces for you to have a conversation soon about that program, if you think it's something that might interest you. Yes, that is it from us. So likewise for me, I'm opening up my diary to be taking on board some more students now for September. Let me know if I can support your little ones or not so little ones in any way. I would love to have a conversation about that with you too. All right, take care, everybody. Let us stop for lunch now so that we can feed our hungry children during the school holidays. And we will see you here again soon. Take care. Bye for now.